Hi folks, FPL General here, recording a new episode of my 59th minute FPL podcast, recording on Tuesday the 1st of October. Gameweek 7 is behind us and we're looking ahead to Gameweek 8 and another dreaded international break. Had a little break myself at the weekend. Myself and my wife took a short trip to Norway, Friday to Monday, spent the weekend in Bergen, had a great time there, an expensive time there, but a good time. So back nice and refreshed now for ahead of Game Week 8. Didn't get to see too many games over the weekend. The only one I watched in its entirety was Man City against Everton. Raheem Sterling, captain, made me sweat until the 85th minute. I watched the game in Bergen with Neil Baxter and Alexander, who's a former fantasy football scout, Hall of Fame #1. So I had a great time watching the game. Well, I say I had a great time watching the game. I didn't really enjoy it until Sterling scored, especially after that one-on-one miss. I couldn't believe he put that one wide. But thankfully, all ended well. A shout out this week goes to my fellow Irishman, Callum Robinson. Joins the 59th minute club alongside the likes of Ross Barkley and Eric Lamela. Robinson's actually been a prime candidate for a shout out for a couple of weeks now. He's finally got one. He's got a 59th minute appearance, and before that he had a 61, a 55 and a 53. So he's a guy to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. He could be the first player to get 2 shoutouts this season. For that reason, I've had him on my watch list for a couple of weeks, and I've removed him now because he's just not getting enough game time. Probably down to he's had injury niggles all season, and Sheffield United have about 15 strikers to choose from, so that is obviously eaten into his game time. A quick review of how Game Week 7 went for me. Overall, it was a good one. Any game week where you get a green arrow is a good one. I ended up on 57 points. Took me from 571k overall up to 450k. So jumped over 100,000 places. That's always good. Going in the right direction. Hopefully you can keep that going, especially in Game Week 8. It's always nice to go into an international break off the back of a good game week. So hopefully I can get a third green arrow in a row there. Going into Game Week 7, I had 2 free transfers. I ended up doing Lucas Dean out for Tomori, and then Donker made way for Mason Mount. So 2 transfers, both paid off. Tomori, I think, took in 7 points, and Mount gave me 6. So 2 successful transfers there. Hopefully those 2 Chelsea guys can serve me well over the coming weeks. I had, a lot of people asked me why did I not get Tammy Abraham. He was the obvious Chelsea player to get going into Game Week 7. I think I've got a question coming up on it later as well. But really, what it came down to was I felt my defence was a bit weak going into the game week. I wasn't sure if Zinchenko would play. I didn't want to play Lucas Dean against City, and I didn't want to play Lundstrom against Liverpool. So really, I was looking at just the 2 Liverpool lads that I have. So that's why I ended up bringing in Tomori instead. I just felt for my team overall, it made things stronger rather than going for Tammy Abraham. And obviously I got lucky that Tammy didn't do any damage at the weekend, because looking at the highlights, he had a lot of chances and he should have scored. So he's still someone, he's high on my radar. But I'm probably just going to roll with Tomori and Mount again for Game Week 8, because I can't get Abraham for a free transfer. But I'll talk more about my options towards the end of the podcast. Elsewhere, I mentioned Sterling captain finally got a captaincy call, a decent captaincy call. Still didn't get it right because De Bruyne outscored him, so I should have captained him. Another 2 assists for De Bruyne, so he keeps the points keep ticking over with him. Some talk today that he's got a groin injury that needs to be assessed, so that's a bit of a worry. If he was ruled out for a couple of weeks, that would definitely shake things up in FPL. But yeah, one to monitor. I think he's out of the Champions League game tonight, and hopefully we'll know more before the weekend about De Bruyne. Double Liverpool defence, patience again rewarded with Trent and Robertson. Every week, I've just said to myself every week, one more week with these double Liverpool defenders, and I could end up just going the whole season with those 2 guys, Trent and Robertson. Robertson in particular, it's pretty nice. A lot of people were shipping him a couple of weeks ago, He wasn't delivering, but I think 4 games in a row now he's got at least 5 or 6 points. So good to see those points rolling in. Blanks from the usual suspects, really. Nick Pope, another blank there. Again, not really worried about Nick Pope because, I mean, when you look at the goalkeeper points overall, there's very little between them, especially those, 4.5, 5 million price goalkeepers. So not really worried about Pope yet. Might be something I look at on wildcard whenever that may be. Zinchenko played, which I hoped for, but didn't get a clean sheet, so that was disappointing. A blank from Salah, disappointing as well. I always thought that Sheffield United fixture would be a tough one for Liverpool, which is why I didn't captain Salah in that one, so glad I went for Sterling instead. And up front, I've got 2 strikers. I've got Pukki and I've got Barnes, and again, useless, the 2 of them this week. Barnes in particular has been very frustrating. Started the season on fire. As soon as we bring him in, I think I've had 3 blanks in a row now, and a yellow card just to top it off. And of course, Chris Wood has turned into Cristiano Ronaldo since I've brought in Ashley Barnes. So probably going to give Barnes another week. Again, I'll talk about it when I come to transfers. I've only got 1 free transfer this week, no cash in the bank. So to get an Ashley Barnes replacement, there's nobody I really want who's cheaper than him. So it's probably a matter of just giving him another week against Everton. Hopefully he gets something, and then he'll be on his merry way after the international break. Yeah, I'll come back to Pukki as well because there's a question about him later, so I'll leave that for now. Moving on to my watch list now. So I update my watch list after every game week. I add the players who are on my radar, and I remove a few who I'm no longer interested in. Very quickly, the ones I've removed this week, nice and easy. I've removed Tyrone Mings because I've also got the right back Gilbert on my watch list. He's 0.2 million cheaper than Mings. He got his first assist of the season at the weekend. So I think if I was going for an Aston Villa defender at the moment, it would be the attacking right back rather than Tyrone Mings, although I think both are very good options this season. I've removed Serge Aurier from my watch list because he's a clown. Ridiculous sending off at the weekend. He's always got that in him. And there's always the worry with rotation with Spurs fullbacks anyway, so I don't think I'll be going anywhere near Serge Aurier this season. I've removed West Ham centre-back Diop as well this week because I don't like West Ham defensively now that Fabianski is going to be out for... There's talk that it's going to be 2 or 3 months. I don't think it's been confirmed yet, but all the signs are pointing towards a long layoff for, arguably West Ham's most important player, Fabianski. So I don't know much about this backup goalkeeper they have. Seen a couple of tweets about him and a couple of dodgy videos of performances from pre-season and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not overly keen on West Ham defence now without Fabianski, who's a top class goalkeeper. And the last player I've removed this week from the watch list is Arsenal's Pepe. He's just too expensive. He's just not doing it at the moment. He was taken off early against United last night, as far as I know. Again, yeah, just not worth the money at the moment. Hasn't fully adjusted to Premier League life yet. I think there is an FPL option in there somewhere, but it might be maybe later in the season before we see that. Again, with Arsenal, it's pretty simple. It's Aubameyang or nobody. Moving on to the more interesting ones now, the players I've added to my watch list following game week 7. First guy, a lot of talk about this guy this week, Riyad Mahrez, 8.5 million. Another big performance at the weekend. Is he worth it with the rotation risk? 7 games in, he's only started 4 out of 7, so straight away I don't like that. I would like it a bit more if the games that he wasn't starting, that he wasn't coming off the bench. The 3 games he hasn't started, he's come on for 10 to 15 minutes. So it's 3 1-pointers in there as well. Which overall he's probably on about 45 points, I think it is. Very, very healthy returns for an 8.5 million priced Man City attacker. So I can understand the attraction. For me personally, I've got Sterling, I've got De Bruyne. No intention of selling either. I've got Zinchenko there as well. So, if I was moving away from Zinchenko, I'd probably go straight to Otamendi. So I don't really have space for Mahrez. A lot of people will be considering the triple up on him. But for me, I just don't have space. And I'm not overly keen. I just don't like them 1-pointers. Can he, when he is on the pitch, he's clearly doing damage, and he was excellent against Everton. He was one of the best players on the pitch in that game. Should have had a lot more points. That Gundogan hit the bar from an open goal. That would have been a Mahrez assist. I think Mahrez hit 4 or 5 goal attempts as well, right up there this week in terms of midfielder. So I can understand the hype, but for me, I just don't like the uncertainty. I want my FPL players to start, more often than not. Yes, all City players are prone to rotation, but with Mahrez, I just don't like that 4 starts out of 7. It's just not enough for my liking. And again, Sterling and De Bruyne and probably Otamendi, I probably prefer those 3 than throwing Mahrez into the mix. Another player I've added following the weekend, he hasn't been on my watch list for a couple of weeks, Harry Kane. As I said, the Man City game was the only game I watched this weekend. Usually I watch 4 or 5 games at the weekend, but being away, I didn't catch too many, so I'm relying on match of the day highlights this week for the podcast. But watching those highlights, Harry Kane looked a lot better, a lot sharper. I like what I seen from him against was it Southampton? I think they were playing. Southampton. Kane has 3 goals in his last 4 games. Decent fixtures as well. Brighton away this weekend, then Watford at home. So two good fixtures on paper coming up for Harry Kane. Possible captaincy option for anyone who has him. I know James on the Planet FPL podcast is a big, he's very loyal to his boy Harry Kane, and he captained him at the weekend and did well for him. And I think he's going to captain him for the next 2 weeks as well. So I think if you have Kane, he definitely is. He's a viable option as a captain with those fixtures on paper. For me, I still probably prefer Son when it comes to Spurs, but Son's got question marks over him as well because he's got a very busy schedule with South Korea, Spurs in the Champions League and all that kind of stuff. We've seen in the past when Son goes away, He does tend to find himself on the bench from time to time under Pochettino with the long travelling and stuff like that. So that's something to think about if you're considering getting Son. I mean, I would love to get Son. I may end up getting him for game week 9, but there is that worry over game time. I think Pochettino has so many options there. He can rest Son if he needs to. So yeah, Harry Kane back on my radar. Unlikely to get him, but definitely going to keep a closer eye on him over the next couple of games. Another player I've added, another obvious one here, Ricardo Pereira. 6.1 million now, Leicester defender. He's very quietly become the top scoring defender in the game this season after scoring back-to-back goals. Great goal he scored against Newcastle. Leicester, we know, have the fixtures after the Liverpool game. It's Liverpool this weekend, but then it's Burnley, Southampton, Crystal Palace. Arsenal's not even a terrible fixture these days either. So yeah, I think Leicester are a team a lot of people are going to be targeting over the next few weeks. Soyuncu is the obvious Leicester defender because of his price, but if people who are looking for differentials maybe or have extra cash lying around, Pereira could be worth the money. He was excellent last season. He's obviously top scoring defender this season as well. So definitely one to keep an eye on, and kind of probably one of those outside of the box ones to think about if you want to try and be a little bit different. The last player I've added this week is Jorginho at Chelsea. Price is just 5 million. Scored a penalty. I think Lampard said he is the designated penalty taker now as well, which makes him an interesting option. A lot of people, obviously Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount are the obvious go-to Chelsea players. A lot of people like myself have gone to Tomori now as well, so maybe we don't have space for Jorginho. But I don't have Tammy. Tammy, I'm probably going to look to get Tammy before I get Jorginho. But I definitely do think Jorginho is. I don't think we should ignore him. He's got the penalties. He's chipped in with 2 assists as well. So you're not just solely relying on penalties. I think he can get returns from open play as well. Like Leicester, we know Chelsea have great fixtures coming up. Again, it's the price, 5 million. If you're someone who's getting a bit fed up of maybe Cantwell, if you got on him early, you might be able to sell Cantwell for 4.9 million. Maybe you can get yourself a Jorginho, a bit of a punt for the next couple of weeks. I don't hate that idea. Unlikely to do it myself. I'll probably just keep Cantwell. But definitely, I just wanted to throw Jorginho in here because I haven't seen too many people talking about him on other podcasts or on social media. So it'll be interesting to see how he does over the next few weeks. Again, the way Chelsea play, I think they will. I think they're a team that could win a lot of penalties this season, which could play into Jorginho's hands. The way they, Mason Mount in particular, the high press on the goalkeepers and on the defenders when they're trying to play it out from the back. I think Mount's already, he won the penalty at the weekend with that high press, and he got one of his goals from that as well earlier in the season. So definitely one to consider, at least Jorginho. If you're a fan of if you're someone who owned Milivojevic last season, then you surely have to consider Jorginho this season. Moving on now to the Twitter questions. I've picked out 4 here, 4 of the best ones that cover some of the main talking points this week. First one came in from Jake Gallagher. Jake asks, who are the best differentials to look at in order to climb the overall rankings? Jake is looking for proper differentials under 5%. He already has Yarmolenko. So yeah, I think right off the bat, you've got one of the best ones there, Yarmolenko. I think it's 3 goals and 4 now. Looks to be a very good FPL asset this season. He is one who is already on my watch list. I think a few others just to throw in here. If you're looking for under 5%, I've mentioned Mahrez, if you want to go that route, and take the 1-pointers on the chin alongside the 14 and 15 pointers that he's capable of. Jorginho I've mentioned. Up front, Chris Wood, I think he's only got about 1% ownership. And I still like Sebastian Haller as well, who's just around that 5% ownership as well. But what I would say to people, like Jake, if you're really struggling, if you're way down the rankings, we still are very early. It is only 7 game weeks in. And I seen someone reply to Jake's tweet here about differentials for climbing ranks. Someone replied and just said the best differential is consistency. And what that person means by that is, you don't need to go looking for these, Hail Mary punts who are under 5% to get your season back on track. The best way to get your season back on track is to just take 1 game week at a time and consistently score well, consistently make good transfers, and consistently, just take a, chip away at the overall rank. And at the end of the day, don't worry too much about the overall rank, because it means nothing. The only time your overall rank means anything is in game week 38. And I think too many people fall into the trap of panicking early if they see their rank 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. At this stage of the season, they start overthinking, overmanaging, trying to look for these differentials. And I mean, if a player is owned by less than 5%, usually they're owned by less than 5% for a very good reason. Mahrez, for example, rotation worry. Jorginho, you're kind of dependent on penalties. Chris Wood, he's Chris Wood and he plays for Burnley. Haller, 5%. I think he's probably one of the better differentials, but it's just because there's so many other good options. If I found myself in that situation last season, I was way down the rankings and I was out of my comfort zone, so I didn't really know how to approach it. Do I go the differential route, or do I just kind of play steady and hope that things turn around? In the end, I did just kind of stick to my own game, and it didn't really work out last season, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't work out for people who are struggling this season. For me, if I was really struggling, I wouldn't be going too crazy looking for these differentials. I would much prefer just to take 1 game week at a time, chip away at that rank slowly between now and game week 38. You've got a long time to chip away at it. Maybe set yourself many targets over the next couple of weeks and months, and just focus on bringing in the players that you think will score the most points. Quite simply, don't try and think outside the box too much, because more often than not, you'll just get yourself into a bigger hole. If you're bringing in differentials, like I say, they're differentials for a reason. There's a good chance they'll let you down. So I would much prefer just to stick to the tried and trusted players, the players that are doing well this season, and just consistently try and score well. And rather than trying to shoot up the rankings quickly, just do it slow and steady. Slow and steady does win the race in FPL. So that would be my advice there. Don't panic, and don't try and overthink it. Just take things slowly and just chip away, and just don't look at the overall rank. Like I often say, I wish the overall rank wasn't in the top right hand corner of the website, because it plays on your mind. It plays on my mind as well. You're looking if you've got a green arrow or a red arrow, but at the end of the day, whether you got a green arrow or a red arrow this week, game week 7, it means absolutely nothing. Ups and downs are part of the game, and all that matters is where you're sitting in game week 38, whether that be with your rank or your mini league. again, many leagues, it's dangerous to start looking at looking at the 5 or 6 managers that are above you, looking at their teams, because it'll play on your mind. Just play your own game, focus on your own team, and look at them in game week 38. That's the only time that it matters. Next question came in from Alex Ball. Alex asks, there's lots of strikers available. If you wildcarded now, which 3 would you choose, and who from your team would you sacrifice to fund them? So let's say I was on my wildcard this week. Which 3 strikers would I choose? That is really a really hard question, because there's probably 10 strikers that we could all justifiably pick in our teams. There's so many options doing well. The cheap ones, the expensive ones, we can't have them all. I think if I wildcarded this week, I would probably go something like Jamie Vardy, Tammy Abraham to attack those Chelsea and Leicester fixtures, and I'd probably throw Callum Wilson in there as well. He's just delivers every week. Bournemouth have decent fixtures as well, so I would probably still be leaning towards the cheaper ones, with maybe more invested in midfield and defence. Aubameyang's an obvious one that I didn't mention there. I think if I was going premium, maybe if I was going for 1 premium in a 3 striker strike force, Aubameyang is probably the one I would go for. Alex's question was, which 3 strikers would I choose on a wildcard? I'm not even sure I would 100% say I would have 3 strikers. I still like my 4-4-2. I still think 3-5-2 is justified. I don't think there's any right or wrong formation to use. Things change so quickly in FPL, so there is more than likely I would go for 3 strikers. But I definitely wouldn't rule out going for 5 in midfield and 2 up front as well. Maybe a 3-5-2 or a bit of a hybrid formation. A bit of a in between where you can chop and change between the 2 of them. But that's, I think, off the top of my head, probably Vardy, Tammy Abraham and Callum Wilson if I was sticking to the cheaper ones, and Aubameyang if you wanted a more expensive one. Next question came in from Vasa. Vasa asks, is it too much of a risk to go without any Liverpool attacker? Vasa is thinking of going for 3 City attackers plus Aubameyang for the next 6 to 8 game weeks. Good question here, and I think a lot of people are considering losing their Mane or their Salah or their Firmino to go without Liverpool attackers. Liverpool do have a tricky run. They've got Leicester this weekend. Leicester have been very impressive this year. Then it's Man United away, Tottenham at home, Aston Villa away, and Man City. So it's a tough run of 5 games coming up for Liverpool, which is why a lot of people are considering Salah in particular. After he blanked against Sheffield United, people are considering shipping him out. The question, is it too much of a risk to go without them? I would say no. I think it's perfectly justifiable to go without a Liverpool attacker for the next couple of weeks. I think the most important thing is you've got to have a plan in place where you can get them back in easily. So if you decide to go without Salah for the next 5 weeks and spread your cash around, maybe for the likes of Vardy, Aubameyang, Son, these guys, you've got to have it in the back of your mind. You've got to ask yourself, how will I get him back if I feel I need him back? That's the most important thing. You've got to have a contingency plan, a backup plan to get these players back in. I've got Salah. He's my only Liverpool attacker, and it hasn't really crossed my mind about selling him until I read all the questions for this podcast. There's so many questions. So many people are considering losing Mane or Salah and getting Aubameyang and these guys, Vardy. I don't think I'll do it myself, and part of that is probably because I got burned big time last Christmas selling Salah just before I think he scored about 50 points over the next 5 games after I sold him. So that's I've probably got some deep scars there, which makes me think twice about doing something similar. But I do think there's no right or wrong way to play the game. I think we'll see a lot of top managers getting rid of Salah. And spreading the cash around, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Obviously, if Salah goes quiet over these next 5 games, you could be laughing. If you get the likes of Vardy, Aubameyang, and they keep delivering big, you're laughing. And the other thing about it's the other thing about getting rid of someone like Salah is, when you look at Man City's fixtures, Man City have Wolves, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Southampton in the next 4. So you're very unlikely to captain Salah in any of those, because you're going to captain Sterling or De Bruyne or Aguero if you have them. So that's another reason. People always ask, what's the point spending 12.5 million if you're not going to captain the player? So that's another, you can see why people are tempted to, free up the cash and spread it around a little bit. It might be something I think about myself during the international break. I don't think I'm going to do it ahead of the Leicester game. But maybe if Salah blanks in that Leicester game, maybe myself and a lot of other people will be considering doing something similar. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Do I think it's too risky? I don't think it is at all. I think it's perfectly justified to spread the cash around for the next couple of weeks. But I think the most important thing is you've got to be able to get the players back in easily if they become essential, because we know someone like Salah, look at the last 2 seasons, he's very, very consistent, and I think he's only blanked twice this season as well. So maybe people are too quick to get rid there. Maybe a bit of patience will pay off. I was going to say one more thing about Salah, but I can't remember. It might come back to me. Next question came in from Javesy. Javesy asks, has the Pookie party finished? A lot of people are asking this question this week. I'd say I had about 15 questions about Pookie. Again, Pookie's gone a little bit quiet. I'm just getting his scores up here in front of me. Norwich have been very poor away from home, so they've played 3 of the last 4 games have been away from home, and they've lost all 3 of them 2-0. So they're not scoring goals away from home, and they're conceding goals. They concede goals home anyway, so that doesn't really matter. But taking a step back and looking at the overall picture of the first 7 game weeks, Sergio Aguero is the only striker who has scored more FPL points than Teemu Pukki. So, I got on him at 6.7 million. He's gone up now to 7.2. He'll probably he might drop this week because a lot of people are going to probably sell him. For me, I'm, again, a bit like Salah. It hasn't really crossed my mind yet to get rid of Pukki. He's got, I think it's Aston Villa at home this weekend and then Bournemouth away. So I'm pretty hopeful. Those 2 fixtures, the home fixture, hopefully he can do something against Aston Villa. Bournemouth away, again, it's an away fixture, but Bournemouth are pretty porous defensively, so I'd be hopeful that Pukki could get something there. So for me, I as I said, I haven't really thought about getting rid of him yet. I'll give him another game or 2, and maybe, if it's another 2 blanks, then maybe it's time to reassess. But for me, I'm happy to hold on to him. Again, like I say, got him at 6.7 million. He's on 53 points after 7 games. That's what more do you want from a that price of a striker? Yes, what is it? It's only 1 goal in the last 4, but again, all of those were away from home. So hopefully the home fixture against Aston Villa, he can improve on that one. Again, I think Pukki will be one for me to reassess during the international break. I'll give him Villa, see how he gets on there, and then reassess it after that. But he's definitely not leaving this week. Moving on now to look at captaincy and transfers ahead of Gameweek 8. Captaincy, I think, again, it's hard to look past Man City the way they're playing these days. They're at home to Wolves this weekend, so I think it's going to be a Man City captain for me. Whether it be Kevin De Bruyne or Raheem Sterling, I don't know. I'll probably end up sticking with Sterling after he finally got me a goal last week. Obviously, a lot depends on injury update on De Bruyne as well. Liverpool are at home to Leicester. I can see that being a tough fixture for Liverpool attackers. I've been very impressed with Leicester this season defensively, so I do prefer City assets this week. Anyone who owns Aubameyang at home to Bournemouth, I think you don't get much better than a home fixture against Bournemouth for your attackers. So I think Aubameyang is a very good captaincy option this week. Spurs are away to Brighton. Brighton have been pretty poor the last couple of weeks, so the likes of Kane and Son, I think, are viable options as well away to Brighton. But yeah, I think it's got to be Man City again this week. I'll keep an eye on the team sheet in the Champions League tonight, see who plays, who doesn't play, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, most likely Raheem Sterling for me, and it could just be Sterling for the next 3 or 4 weeks, to be honest. My transfers, probably going to bank a transfer this week. I think banking a transfer is going to be a popular move for a lot of managers this week if you don't have any major issues. It's always nice to carry an extra transfer into an international break. Can do a little bit of surgery afterwards then, maybe make 3 transfers for a -4. They call it a mini wildcard. That's something I'm thinking about. So yeah, I'm probably going to bank. Even if De Bruyne is injured, I'll probably just bench him and play. I've got decent options this week. I've got Cantwell on the bench, who I could play. I've got Lundstrom, who's got a decent fixture as well. So I don't think I'll be forced into a transfer if De Bruyne is out. Now, the only thing that would change that is if it comes out on Friday that, De Bruyne is out for, 4 or 5 weeks. Hopefully that's not the case. But yeah, most likely going to back my transfer. I mentioned on last week's podcast I had the wild card in my mind for the international break, but again, I'm very happy with how things are going. It's just slow and steady for me this season. The Tomori and Mason Mount transfers paid off last week. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the squad. Ashley Barnes is probably the only one I want to get out soon. I can do that with 2 free transfers after the break. So I think I'm going to end up holding on to the wild card. I don't think I'll be playing it during the break, and I'm just going to hold it until I need it. I'm not going to play it just because I've got 2 weeks off and I'm going to be bored. That is not a good enough reason to play your wild card. Don't play it just because you want something to do during the 2 weeks. If your squad's in good shape, hold on to it. If you haven't used it already, we do have this blank game week. I think it's around game week 18. Liverpool and West Ham are going to have a blank game week, so maybe that the wild card could be quite useful around that stage, and to build a squad for the busy Christmas period as well. So I've never kept my wild card, probably past the second international break. I think this will be the first time I ever do it, but it feels good. It feels good to have it in the back pocket for later, and hopefully I can get a big boost from that. Maybe November, December time if I do decide to keep it until then. Which players are on my mind after the break with 2 free transfers? Probably Leicester. Vardy, Maddison, maybe a defender, Soyuncu. Tammy Abraham I'd like to get in as well. Callum Wilson. Son as well. So I'm just gonna, I'll just see how game week 8 goes. Update the watch list then afterwards, and then see what I can do with 2 free transfers. But yeah, looks like it's going to be a while before I make a transfer. It's probably 3 weeks before I make another transfer, so it's going to be pretty boring. What else do I need to mention before I finish up? I'll be recording a Patreon exclusive podcast on Friday. I record a podcast every Friday. Go through more questions from patrons, and just usually by Friday I know exactly what I'm doing with Captaincy and Transfers and stuff like that. If you want to become a patron, if you enjoy what I do, and if you want to support a guy living his dream, working full time on FPL, check out patreon.com/FPL General. The best time to sign up to any Patreon subscription is the start of a new month. The way my Patreon works is if you sign up early in the month, you don't get charged until the first of the following month. So effectively, you get a free trial. So if you sign up for Patreon today, tomorrow, the next day, you can try it out for the international break. And if you don't like it, you can simply cancel and you won't be charged a penny. So join us during the international break. We've got a great Slack channel. There's about 250 people on there. FPL gets discussed 24/7, even when I'm tucked up in bed. The Americans and the Australians and everyone else are still chatting away on the Slack channel, so it never stops. Check it out over the international break if you want to know more. Any questions about it, just send me a message. I'm recording a Fantasy Weekly podcast tonight. That will be available Wednesday at 2 p.m. Be sure to check that one out. Lots of good information in that podcast every week as well. Fantasy Bet this week, I'll be taking part in the Grand Weekend as always, but as well as that, if you're listening to this podcast on Tuesday or Wednesday, Fantasy Bet are running some £1,000 guaranteed Champions League contest as well, so check those out. As always, if you're playing on Fantasy Bet, it's 18 plus and begambleaware.org. Enjoy the rest of your week, folks. Enjoy the Champions League. Enjoy the Europa League. If you're someone who watches that, I certainly don't watch Europa League games on a Thursday night. Good luck in game week 8. And enjoy the international break. Don't crack up. There'll be no podcast next Tuesday, the first week of the international break, but I will be back the following Tuesday then, so 2 weeks from today will be the next episode. So thanks as always for listening, folks. If you enjoyed the episode, Please do give it a retweet, give it a share, thumbs up, leave a review on iTunes. All that good stuff helps me get the podcast out there a little bit more. Good luck in Game Week 8, folks, and I'll talk to you all soon.